life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need.
All right, hello, my friends here on Facebook. We've got the Denver Metro real estate stats reports coming to you here with my buddy Anthony.
Thanks
So
for having me,
Anthony,
Matt.
yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself for those that don't know you, who you are, and then I'm going to hit you with a random question I didn't prepare you for.
Oh, perfect. I love that. I'm Anthony with Land Title. I do sales in our Boulder market. Brenna, Matt's wife, does the same thing as I do, but in a different market. So I'm just filling in why you have that brand new, gorgeous baby at home. So that's exciting.
Yeah, 2 months old, right? Not so brand new. The new baby smell, I think, is still there, which it was never really a thing for me. I hear that's a thing people actually enjoy, but no, that new baby smell is not my thing.
That's too funny. But I think that's what like my wife misses most about our children is they don't smell like that anymore.
Yeah,
And they don't run around and just break everything in the house.
not a whole lot of moving. So,
Exactly.
so yeah, here's my question for you. Right, was thinking about this. Anthony, the '90s are cool and they're back again with fashion and trends. So I've got to know what '90s cool stuff that's back today, right? What were you the culprit of? Was it the long mullet? Was it the fanny pack?
Ooh.
Where were you?
Well, I definitely had a fanny pack, but that's because my dad had a fanny pack. So if he rocked a fanny pack, the one thing I wish would come back that didn't come back though, my dad used to rock those crop tops for guys. Oh, that
Yeah,
would have been cool. But I think it's probably because in the early 90s, he probably was rocking a six pack and I am rocking the dad bod. So I wouldn't wear one anyway. Right. And I feel like the dad bod's in now.
yeah. Well, it's no longer a dad bod; it's a father figure. So
Ah,
yeah, for me, I had the fanny pack. I had the mullet for a little bit until I think first grade. But I probably had it when everybody else stopped having mullets. Right? It was not
probably.
cool anymore, and that's when I had it.
I miss the denim cutoff shirt that I used to have. That was the best in the 90s.
Yeah, the real bright colors for everything, all the clothes.
That's too funny. Yeah, it is definitely coming back full circle. Unfortunately, now I'm a dad and I'm not fashionable at all. I basically just dress like this every day.
Yeah, well, jeans and a t-shirt probably never really go out of style, so I think I'm okay. I'm in the safe zone, right? If if you've ever seen the movie Hitch, where he's got to dance in
Oh,
that
that's right.
zone, right?
Stay in the
Totally,
safe zone.
that's where I'm at, right?
That's awesome.
Um, so, Anthony, let's talk about our real estate stats, right? Folks believe that the market is shifting and things are moving fast. Um, but I think the real estate stats are still showing that it's pretty strong seller's market still.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I mean, we'll take a look at the data here, but I think the biggest highlights here are as a buyer, you're getting some opportunity now. It's a little bit less competitive because interest rates have really driven some buyers out of the market. It's an awesome time to capitalize on that. But if you're a seller, you definitely didn't miss the boat. It's a killer seller's market out there, and I really think you should focus on that. I mean, sooner than later this year would make a lot of sense because we're in a rising inventory market right now.
Yeah. I think it's interesting where your strategy and how you approach this market is probably never had to be a little bit more on point in the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years for what time do we go on the market? What's our pricing strategy? How well the home shows and prepares. I think you really got to be very cognizant of how you approach the market right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
mean, it really needs to be done right, right? Otherwise, we're seeing people sit on the market, and the people that aren't sitting on the market are like on and off, right? I mean, they're going under contract fast, which the data will show us, and we can talk a little bit about that. This is definitely some very fascinating stuff this week.
Yeah, for sure. So pay attention, right? We're going to jump into this and go through. So let's talk through slides. So normally, Anthony, right, you've got control of the slides. You're driving this, but some computer issues leaves it to me. So I'm going to
Here you
jump
go.
to
That's the one right here.
the market snapshot, attached and detached single family homes.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting time because seeing that inventory level rise as much as it has, I mean, you would think that this seems like it's not great when you look at this graph, but we have been in such an inventory shortage for a few years. When the active units are less than the under contracts or solds, like that's a dangerously low inventory, just hot sellers market, right? And we're still in a hot sellers market, but we're finally getting to the point where there's at least something to go show your buyers, right? If you're a buyer in this marketplace, finally you can at least go look at a couple of homes and not just write an offer on the first thing that fits your budget. So I think this is a really good sign for the buyer, but at the same time, seller, don't panic, because if you guys remember in January, February, March of 2020, it was going to be a really good year, and we're getting close to about the same inventory levels we were then.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the inventory and the balance level of it right now. The thing that doesn't maybe feel as exciting for a seller is you're less likely to get $100,000 over your list price than you were, the same time over the last 2 years. But the good news is your neighbors that sold a year ago and the year before that, they got those prices, set the new floor. You're now pricing based on what they got in that market. So you kind of still get it too without having to have the, mad dash of, a line of people around the block to get into your house.
Yeah, I actually think this is probably the best of all worlds, where you don't have to have 100 showings in the first weekend and just leave town because it's so chaotic at your house. But yet you can still absolutely take advantage of all of that price gain that we've gotten over the last 2 years. I mean, we're talking 20+% over each year for the last 2 years. I mean, it's really good to see that monetary and fiscal policy that the government's been doing is starting to take some steam out of the market. I mean, basically, look at this year over year, the average sales price is still up 11%, right? I mean, that's really strong, which also means, like, if you're a buyer, you don't really want to wait, because what's the chances you're going to make 11% more money next year than you are now?
Yeah,
Not usually that likely, right?
No, not so much happening in that order for most folks. And you can't outsave the market. Conversation I was having with a lender friend of mine about a client was, some of these potential buyers, you got to get your foot in the market right now, right? So take advantage of what you have now, because you can't play this game from the sidelines.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely want to be in the market and on that escalator. All right, well, let's go a couple more slides and let's talk about something else that's important. So this is our inventory slide, kind of pulled off just that one, but I really want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, the submarkets seem like they're changing at a lot different paces, right? You got places like Adams County that's 100% more inventory, right? It's double what it was this time last year. But then you got other places like Denver that's only 26% increase, right? We're seeing it like this all over the Front Range. So depending on the market, depending on the desirability, depending on its proximity to city centers, like they're all changing at different paces for good reasons. I mean, a lot of people, if you work in downtown Denver, wouldn't you want to live a little closer to downtown Denver? Now they're getting the ability to do that without quite the competition we saw a little while ago. So you're going to see these all transition to different rates, but they're all transitioning, right? I mean, look at markets like Broomfield. There's only 174 homes active on the market, but that's an 86% or 87% increase from this time last year. So, I mean, it's all kind of going in the same direction. It's just at what pace, right?
Well, right to your point, and here's what got Zillow in trouble, is real estate is uniquely hyper local, because this neighborhood here, this street, this section might be very highly desired, and yet the house around the corner, not quite as much, right? Even though it's got similar amenities. This is where, really diving into the sub-markets, the hyper-local uniqueness of real estate matters.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we have a long ways to go before we got into any sort of balanced market here. So we're just barely on the rise right now. So, all right, let's go a couple more over and let's talk a little bit more about inventory. This one here is our month supply of inventory. So when you're measuring month supply of inventory, it just means if no more houses come on the market, how long would it take to sell the current 6,800 homes? Well, currently we're at 1.45 months of inventory, basically a good 6 weeks, right? I mean, when you talk about it in weeks, it doesn't seem nearly as bad when you're like, man, we went from 1.5 weeks of inventory at the hottest sellers market we've ever seen to here we are at 6 weeks on market. And if you're going to list a home, 6 weeks seem that unreasonable? Absolutely not. I mean, I think that's back in the day, 6 weeks would have been like an amazing market, right? People would have been killing for 6 weeks of inventory instead of 6 months in some cases, right? So this is, this one of those times where all the inventory is rising, some places more than others. I mean, look at Elbert County, 2.8 months of inventory. Obviously, that one's getting closer to balance faster. But then you still have places like Arapahoe and Denver that are 5 weeks of inventory. So, I mean, this is all adjusting, and we're seeing it ratchet up every month. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw inventory rise for a couple more months here, but we're definitely not getting anywhere out of a seller's market anytime soon.
Well, as we hear folks that are not watching the numbers nearly as diligently as you and I, and they talk about, well, the interest rates just caused a complete slowdown. Nobody's buying right now, so it's not a good time to sell. Well, the numbers don't prove that out, right? When we look at how fast the market's still moving, people are still putting properties under contract, and that's not changing. And in fact, for the Great Recession, right, the housing bubble that burst, people were still buying homes during that time.
Yeah, we'll go 3 more slides and we'll talk about the speed of the market because, like you said, it's just going faster than ever before. I mean, it's a little off of last year, sure, but the market seemed to shift just a little early because of those interest rate rises. And when I say shift, I mean shift, like it's not moving mountains. We're talking about a day, 2 days, 3 days. So 13 days in the MLS, like if you want to buy a house right now, you got to be on it, right? There's no, I'll shop when we feel like it. We'll go look on Saturday and look at all the homes. Well, all the good houses are getting sold on Thursday. So, right? I mean, in all reality, I say that jokingly, but I mean, the average home's going under contract in less than 2 weeks.
It's still one of those, you have to have your pre-approval before you go out shopping and start looking for homes, because it's not one of those that you could say, hey, I love this home. I'm going to take my time to get everything over to my lender and I'm going to be able to buy this house, right? It's one of those that, hey, I'm going to look at homes today. Maybe I'm going to look at the homes tomorrow, and I've got an opportunity to still buy the ones that I saw yesterday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is a good time to be a buyer, but you still got to be on it for sure. Yeah, and this is going to continue to rise to the end of the year. So I don't really have a crystal ball, but if you look at something like last year is very seasonal. This is kind of what you should expect. The highest days in MLS, like the longest it takes to put a house under contract, is usually that like December, January timeframe. It trends all the way down through, that June, July timeframe, and it trends all the way back up towards the end of the year. So it's kind of that horseshoe. So we can expect that year over year over year. 2020, that didn't happen because of COVID, right? And then even in 2021, we still saw the same trend. It's going to be more extreme this year. I wouldn't be that surprised. But, pre-COVID, we were still in the 20s, 30s, 40s. So it could take a month or two to get under contract. If you're looking at it from like a seller's perspective, here we are still at 14 days. It just means we got to be buttoned up if we're going to go on the market to get those numbers.
Yeah, and I've been watching this really for the better part of now of a decade. Looking at these numbers, I rarely ever saw them dip down into the 20s, and now we're talking about the market slowed way down, and we're going to
at 13 days
ish, right? You can see all the way back to January 2020, 44 and a half days in the MLS, and that was still a strong seller's market as we were in January 2020. Yeah. If we're looking at the seasonality of 2019 and that, right? 30 days was still hot, right? It was still good. Yeah. We got a ways to go to catch up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it could take years to be back into some sort of reasonable scenario. Yeah. So I think we'll just kind of reset our mindset here.
Well, what's reasonable anymore, Anthony? I don't know when it comes to our real estate market, right? What's normal?
I don't know. All right, let's go on a couple more slides. Let's talk about what the new normal looks like. This is a good way to kind of gauge what is your new normal for this month, right? I mean, if you're a buyer or a seller, you should look at like, what's my price band doing? 600,000 to 800,000 is like the bulk of the inventory in the market. Well, why is that? It's because that's the bulk of the housing on the market, right? That's what's available. So when you see 2,100, 2,200 homes available from 600,000 to 800,000, and you see 1,200 sales in a month, thank God they're finally not turning over every single month. And that's all we have to look at. Like from a buyer's perspective, this is a really good time to do this. From a seller's perspective, You're not going to have 100 people tramping through your house, but you can absolutely still get it sold. So when people say no one's buying housing, they're obviously absolutely wrong. I mean, we had thousands and thousands of sales take place last month, just like we do every month. It may be a little slower. We're, 10% off of where we were this time last year. But I mean, when you look at it by price range, this can be where you can really find some of that opportunity. I think we're finally getting back into a market where we're going to see some trade up potential. If you want to go over a couple more slides, let's talk about trade up potential, because trade ups this is a big deal, right? If you could sell at a pretty reasonable range, where you're at, maybe you got a bunch of equity gain, your house is in that 500,000 to 600,000 range. You got, you bought it at 400 2 years ago. It's worth 550 now. Maybe this is a good time to start looking at, maybe I should sell that. I should buy something up in the 800 range, right? My income went up, or I just need more bedrooms for my family, or whatever it is. Now there's starting to be some potential there, because you get it on the market, you can get it sold really quickly, you can get top dollar for it, and then you actually have a few homes to go shop through, right? I mean, I think that we're getting to that point where the market's slowing a little bit more, that those higher price range inventory is starting to rise. And if you can go from hyper focused, lots of buyers, speed of the market's 11 or 12 days, and then you can jump up into something that's 23 days on market, so you're not competing with as many buyers. There's 2 months of inventory up there. You have a few things to shop for. This is an awesome time for trade ups. It's just a little bit harder to swallow the interest rates, but I think if you can navigate that, but get into the house, you can refinance it in a couple of years. It'll be good.
Well, the jumbo rates tend to be a little bit more favorable right now than your conforming loan. So you might be in a pretty good spot. The interest rates have been declining as of late. They've been dropping a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, the interest rate market is definitely finally getting to the point where we're starting to see some balance in there. And the fact that the Feds keep continuing to raise the short-term rates, it's affecting the bond market in very different ways. It's actually putting confidence back in the market, right? Which people didn't really expect to happen as quickly as it did. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. So, right, keeping an eye on that, a pulse on the market as far as what the short-term rates are doing. Great. It's not a one-to-one comparison, right, with what mortgage rates.
Yeah, they definitely don't trend together. Oh. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got a few more things to talk about here. You want to talk about sales in the marketplace? This is always fun. I mean, I feel like we're getting back to maybe a little bit more of that new norm. Everyone's talked about the new norm for, 2022 is going to be the year we get back to the new normal, right? Post-COVID normal. I think we're pretty much getting there, right? These are really comparable numbers to what we saw in 2018 and 2019. Yeah, it feels like we're down quite a bit in sales. We're down 28% from this time last year, but this is like back to semi-healthy market, like very, pretty normalized. So I feel good about it. I mean, we still had 4,200 homes sell last month, so you can definitely buy or sell a house right now.
Which tells me, right, homes are going under contract every single day, right? When we look at,
Right.
give or take, you got about 30 days in the month, right? There's a lot of homes going under contract every single day. So people are out buying, right? It's just getting into that mix, getting into that game. It's still 2,800 homes back in January of this year. That's still a lot of people getting new residents.
Yeah, and I think it might have been really competitive in January, February, right? Because the inventory was so low.
Yeah.
But I think sales were really constricted because of the lack of inventory, right? We had way more buyers than we had sellers. And then we kind of tipped that scale in about April. And you see the peak of the sales were from all those April under contracts. Inventories, or those interest rates start to rise a little bit. It's cooled off the amount of properties kind of trading hands, but it's cooled it off, right? It's not an extreme swing. So this is a really good sign. We're getting back to a pretty normalized, healthy seasonal market like we've been used to in years past.
Well, with the way that the interest rates were, so many more homes were being sold over the last couple of years just by, kind of percentage wise. And where I'm going at with this is if we had more homes available the last 2 years, we would have sold, 10%, 15%, 20% more homes, right? Because people would have found the homes that they were looking for. They would have had time to shop, right? And things would have happened that way. I think the last 2 years were very much an anomaly and just very crazy. We're getting back to a little bit slower pace in the market, which is not a slow pace by any means.
Yeah, we're absolutely clipping along at a gallop here, so that's a good sign. All right, so let's talk about sales price. I think that's the next slide in here, isn't
Yeah.
it? And sales price is one of those things where we really got to start to better understand. I mean, obviously, you can see here over time, the market's pretty seasonal. The bigger houses sell in the springtime. They usually cost a little more money. That's the most convenient time to move your family. So, just because month over month average sales price went down doesn't mean that the market's going down, right? I think that's something to really unpackage that you're seeing in the news. From this time last year, I mean, the average person in Denver Metro made $86,000 on their house. That's a lot of equity gain. So, I mean, what about the people that had a rental? They made that times two, right? Maybe you have a couple rentals. I mean, that's why people get into real estate, because that passive wealth growth is brilliant. And if you don't get on the escalator, like, how are you ever going to get started? Because everyone that trades up into a bigger home, they really need to tap into that equity gain to put some money down, right? You can get in at 3 or 5% down on a conventional loan and then tap into that $86,000, which is probably more than you made working, and it's all tax free if it's your primary residence. You've lived there for a couple of years, right? So this is cool stuff. I mean, this is why I'm passionate about real estate. This is why you're passionate about real estate, right? Because it's just an amazing wealth creation tool for the average American.
Yeah, without a doubt, right? I've I got invested into the stock market at a very young age, and I don't think I made any money. The financial advisor we had, I don't think it was. Man, if my grandparent, my great grandmother, who actually left me the money to get into that market, if she would have left me a piece of real estate from when I was born in 1984 instead of buying those savings bonds, wow, how much further ahead, right? I could have retired, right? Been on a beach, and Brandon would love being down there on the beach. Be fantastic, right?
Yeah,
But
that would be awesome.
we look at real estate as a wealth building tool and just the options that you have when you own real estate. So, we look at right now, I'm looking at a home equity line of credit. We got a whole lot of equity in our home, and we're not really looking to move, but to tap into the amount of equity that we have to, take advantage of a business opportunity that might come up, or to kick back and relax, or do some of the things that we want to do. I can't do that if I'm renting. And I can't do that if I didn't get into the market, the real estate market. But gosh, what a great opportunity. And, if I wanted to take a year off and not work at all, that money that I got from the home equity line of credit, that's not taxed, right? I don't get taxed at 40% on that number, right? It's a loan.
Exactly.
So it's got to get paid back, right? It's debt. That's why I don't get taxed on it. But, again, opportunities and things you can do, even if you're not looking to buy or sell in this market, if you own real estate, the options that it's created for you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, so we have probably 2 more slides we're talking about. The next one here, this one is our sold units. So you can see that July took a big dip in sales. I mean, it's another one of those years where it's still abnormal. You have a lot of people kind of getting into the summer thing. People are kind of take a pause from the buying. What you're hearing in the media and in the news is really like scaring some buyers off. I really think we're going to see this bump back up a little bit, and we're going to have probably a pretty strong fall. But I mean, year to date, we're down 11, 12% in sales. It wouldn't shock me if we're down 11 to 12% probably all year for the rest of the year, but it's because we're kind of readjusting to that normalized market. Now, yes, certain markets are looking better or worse than others. I mean, places like Broomfield are down 16% in total sales. You have other places like Jefferson County that's only down 8% in sales, right? So the fluctuations happening, market to market, location, right? But this is an easy one to digest and understand. We had a banner year in 2021. That's what we posted. Here we are in 2022, kind of getting back into a little bit more normalized market. But I mean, look at this, 31,000 sales still this year in the Denver metro market. Like, it's a great time to buy and sell real estate all the time.
Yeah. Well, and it's, 10% or 11% of 31,000 homes. It's a little over 3,100 homes. I mean, that's not a small number, but, we're talking about it's still relatively small number from, and if we had more inventory last year, we just sold 15% or 25%, like I said earlier, more homes, and that number would look a little bit different, right? But the demand was so out of whack the last 2 years that they're right. We're good, right? Still, a lot of people are moving. They're getting into new residents. A lot of great things are still happening with our real estate market.
Absolutely. Well, the last slides talk about some of those bidding wars and that listed sale price. So let's unpackage this by just a little bit. I think it's important to understand a couple of things here. The market shifted a little bit early because of the interest rate hikes, right? But it was also the most banner year in real estate we'd ever seen, biggest bidding wars ever. So we went from that, 107% listed sale price range down to here we are at 101%. If you look at this chart, it looks like the sky's falling, right? But what's happening is we're finally coming back to earth, right? I mean, usually in a banner year, in the best month of the year, we hit maybe 101%, right? That listed sale price is 100 about at the best month. Throughout the fall, it trends down into that 98, 99% range, but it's pretty, small peaks and valleys. That's where we're going to land this year, I think. I really, truly think we're going to be back in a more normalized range. The sky is not falling. We just are not getting $100,000 over asking price offers like we saw this spring, but you're captured all that appreciation if you're a seller already, right? Yeah. So as a seller, this could be a really good time to just price appropriately, keep it buttoned up, get it on the market, but there's still bidding wars at a lot of price ranges, right? I mean, pretty much everything under 800,000 we saw last month still was in some sort of competitive scenario. So lots of active buyers out there. And if you have your property priced right and listed right and looking good, you're taking advantage of that, right? So the big takeaway here is this is 30 to 60 days ago. So we can kind of feel the trend of where we're headed, but it doesn't feel like the sky's falling. We're getting some inventory, but that's all bringing us a little bit more back to reality.
Yeah, right. It's slowing at a rapid rate, which is a good thing, right? It's hard to know what's going to happen when it comes to trying to price or help buyers buy properties when it's 107% on average, right? Which means some of them went way over that, and some of them, brought that average back down, right? So when we see this or hover in that 97 to 99 range, that's a pretty predictable market.
Yeah, I think so. And it's going to be really good to get back into a market like that because it's just been way too extreme. It's way too difficult for these buyers. Now, if you wanted to retire a little early and you were like 62, this might be the perfect market to do that in, right? Tap into that equity and move out of state. Like we see a lot of that. And that's been a good spot too, right? There's a lot of people able to accelerate their retirement by a couple of years because a couple $100,000 in equity that they didn't know they were going to have has really made it a lot easier to do that. But that's not the bulk of Colorado. I mean, Colorado traditionally attracts a much younger audience. And so we have a lot more first-time home buyers than we have baby boomers looking to retire.
Still a great place to move to live, to do what you want to do, right? The Colorado lifestyle is alive and well, and the secret's out. It's still a great place to be. Still, every time I look, it's in the top 10 to 15 on states that people are moving to. And some of the states that are ahead of us have much bigger populations, right? So there's a lot more population movement in there, but
yeah, for sure.
We don't get the heat that they get down in Phoenix. We don't have the humidity like they do in Florida. We don't get the cold, brutal winters like they do in Chicago. So here we are.
Here we are. You should stop telling everyone about these secrets.
Well, if they're watching my Facebook feed, right, they know already.
They probably already live here, in fact, right?
They're probably calling me. So,
well, that's good.
It's good. Colorado's always been a transplant state. It's just grown so much faster as people have more flexibility in where they can live.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Matt, anything else you want to talk about? I mean, I think we kind of summed up the market in a nutshell here.
Yeah, it's cool to look at the numbers, right? Because I always say that, the real estate, the numbers tell a story. So what is the story that they're telling? And what is the story that I'm telling myself? Because if I'm telling myself one thing, does the data back it up? Because I could feel a certain way about it, But if the numbers don't back that up, well, maybe I need to rethink the way that I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what this is for. And obviously, one thing being told in the media may not be the same thing as what the numbers are saying here. So it really is our jobs to really help get that accurate information out there,
Yep.
because I feel like we're really combating a lot of national news and a lot of hype in the media right now. So hopefully this helps.
Yeah, we want to be the real source. Now, the news outlets are probably not going to call me for my opinion because I'm not going to be the doomsday person. But I mean, if I wanted to be a YouTube millionaire, maybe that's what I should be doing, right? Going on and making bold predictions and, really being on the extreme of something. But, I just, again, want to be a good source of factual information, want to say, hey, this is what's going on and this is what we think it means.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you're doing a good job, Matt. Keep it up. I think this is our last month together.
This is it, right? Brenna comes back from maternity leave next month. Right away, I'm gonna jump in. We're gonna get her on the video here. Day one or whatever it is. As soon as she's back, we'll just not like she's got enough going on as she gets back.
Well, either way, thanks for having me. It's been super fun for the last 3 months.
Yeah, loved it. Really appreciate it, Anthony. It's always a fun conversation. So again, for those that have been watching, shoot me a text. Let me know kind of what conversations you want us to have and the data you want us to look up. So cool. All right. Thanks again, Anthony.
Thank you.
Yep.